You know, it used to be mad love, but baby, now we got bad blood. This is the Illest podcast. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Howdy. How's it going?
Welcome back. I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Oh, then what are you doing on this fucking podcast, Aydan?
I know, seriously. We don't like you because you're healthy.
Yeah,
We like you because you're fucked up and you talk about it.
This is the Illest podcast,
Yeah.
not the fucking healthiest podcast. Hello,
Look, I was trying.
my name is Key Man Harder, coming in here hot, just aggressive, just laying it down.
I have definitely set the standard high for. It's like a defense mechanism. Like you know that when I start talking, I'm going to be like bam, 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 and so you just got to start at the beginning. By the way, my name is Aydan. I am the other host of this podcast. I think for now, at least, unless I get healthier, then I'm going to get kicked off.
Yeah, basically either direction is bad. Because if you get healthier, you're kicked off. If you get worse, you kind of fall. Yeah, you fall off. So it's this is the tightrope podcast.
Yeah, this is the fine line that has been blurred that we're walking intensely.
Crawling more.
Yeah.
We have
stumbling,
wheelchairing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, now we've backed ourselves into a corner. So let's introduce our guest.
Let's move right forward.
Yeah. So we have another guest for you today, and I'm very excited about this, mostly because they're almost as funny as I am. So you guys are in for a treat. Would you mind introducing yourself? Yeah. And if you have a chosen name and or pronouns that you prefer, please.
Yeah, so I go by Olive. It's short for Olivia. It's my middle name. I'm just much more comfortable.
Totally.
Going.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the queer community kind of feel more comfortable with their chosen identity.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's a thing.
It's a thing, and so I think the more I've embraced that
I'll explain it to you later,
myself.
Key.
It's okay, Key.
I'm just kidding.
Please don't feel.
Please don't feel excluded.
If I go by my middle name, that's just man, which is what you guys are constantly referring to me.
I'm not gonna lie. The first time I saw your name on Facebook, I legit thought it was a stage name.
I mean, it is
for a porno.
Now.
Yeah. Is this your audition? I don't understand. Why is your name Harder?
Harder, man.
Yeah,
harder. Put your back into it.
Yeah. What do people say when you have to fill out forms and you have to put your last name first? Harder, Key Man.
Yeah,
that's your name.
Harder, Key.
Yeah, that is actually the phrase I hear most in my life.
Ooh, that's either very good or very bad.
Yeah.
No, it's I hear a lot because I'm just really bad at following
exactly.
instructions.
Oh my God.
No, I hear it all the time, and I'm not bragging. That actually wasn't a joke. That's our topic today.
You're like, I hear it all the time, and it's not even my name. So.
Oh gosh.
Actually, I was actually in third grade when I first heard that joke. I was in third grade. There was the cool fifth graders. You know how the fifth graders are cool with their edgy grown-up humor than fifth graders.
Yeah.
Where I first heard the phrase "key harder, harder key harder."
Oh shit! This is going to be a problem. For
that's
the rest of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, well, this is a joke I'll only hear once now in third grade.
Everyone, if you are still breathing currently, you've thought that.
Yeah.
This is a joke I'm never going to hear again. And then you realize that adults are just very large children who exchange poop jokes for shit jokes, but they're basically the same.
Yeah.
Yep.
Poop is shit and shit is poop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
You
are the
even
guest.
Answer that first question, which
we got your name.
Yeah. So you guys all you all know my name. It's Olive Avina.
That's pretty.
Thank you.
It sounds like a moisturizing hand lotion.
Like Avino. It's actually so funny because today I had to explain that to someone because they wrote it down Avino.
Oh, really?
And I was like, do you think that I am sitting on top of an empire of moisturizing creams?
Yeah.
That's not my life. I would not be here if that were my life.
Listen, sir, do you think I'd be doing this blowjob in the back of a car if my last name was Avino? No. That's not That's not
It
real.
would be the back of a
Now shut
much
up and let me
nicer
finish.
car.
Yeah, I'd be doing it in the back of a limo, not this minivan.
Right. Yeah. It's so funny that you just explained my Saturday.
Yeah,
evening.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's like you were there.
your weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you were
Maybe
there.
I
I
was.
think
You
you
never
were
know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like what else am I supposed to tell people about myself? I'm very so private.
like what
Yeah, I
so
can
like
tell.
what else do you do? Also, your pronouns.
It is she, her, or they, them, but usually like I identify as, oh God, identity is so crazy because like I'm a very, I've always felt like a very masculine woman, but still a woman. And so it's like
Absolutely.
this, like I still kind of have, I feel like I'm in that queer umbrella where I kind of can like shirk the female part whenever I need to because I'm so masculine presenting. And so it's just like.
That's really interesting. I know this is like a podcast about illness, but I really want to ask you a question about that.
Yes.
Because it's something that I've talked about being a trans woman. I have said many times. I spoke at HSU recently, which sounds a lot nice, like a lot more important than it actually
but
was.
Everyone from Humboldt's like
I was standing in the parking
okay.
lot yelling at people, with a sign. That's a fancy name for a protest.
Everyone thinks if you're listening to this, you think that she had a podium, but that is not the case.
No. Yes, I guest lectured
not the
at
case.
HSU, which means I protested and got arrested. No, and I said, one of the things I said was, I feel, I have a responsibility. I feel like because I said at the end of the day, I can still pass as a cis white male, and so even though my gender identity, my gender expression sometimes are female. I mean, gender identity is female. My expression is sometimes female.
Yes.
I still can absolutely. I still have that. White male privilege coat that I wear every day.
Yeah, and you can, and you're in that window of passability for kind of whichever you choose to present.
Yeah,
right.
For the most part.
Yeah,
I mean, most of the time people think I'm a female, but like a drag female,
which is different.
So yeah, they're
Let's clarify that is
they're
different.
either like yelling at me outside their car, trying to shoot me, or throwing money at me, or a combination of any of those three.
Which is why you're on this podcast.
Yes, exactly. Because they can't. The windows are. They can't see through the windows.
They're very far. If you're able to go throw stuff at us from this far, like you need to get signed professionally. I'm going to get pissed for a second, and then also be like, "Oh, good name."
That's impressive.
Yeah,
impressive. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the next question. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No.
I'm gonna say sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. A lot of times, I never mean it.
I also had a joke.
He has a joke.
But now it's it's going to be because there's now build up. But also you being able to be kind of more masculine. I'm pretty sure the ladies do enjoy that little flexibility on your behalf.
Yeah, and also I've been going to yoga, so that's another.
That sounds kind of offensive to me.
I
don't like to joke about my sexual preferences. Just kidding. That's literally the only reason I'm on this podcast.
No, I like being flexible in my gender and also physically flexible. I just like being generally flexible. I think that's it's going to get you places.
It's going to get you a lot of places.
Right, a lot of
into
places.
Small boxes.
Yeah,
I was
through
just going to
small
say,
boxes.
Thank you for going along.
Into a higher tax bracket from the back of cars.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm sorry. Did you have another question? I feel
I was just going to ask you if you're comfortable. I like to tell our guests, we've had one, that if you're comfortable and you would like to share what your chronic illness or what you deal with is, but you don't have to because our show is centered on experience, not necessarily the illness. Right. So I just wanted to
I think at this point, it's so hard to answer that question without kind of going through the whole story of it.
Which is fine. Usually if people answer the question, that is the beginning of our podcast. So please do that because otherwise it's going to be a really long hour.
That's fair. So I have epilepsy, and it sounds. Some people think that it sounds huge and big and scary, and then some people are like, "Oh, epilepsy, so you're not actually sick." And so I get all of these different, and you're nodding because you understand what it's like to have a sickness where either you're sick or you're not sick to other people.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
you never look sick.
You never look sick. And the worst part about it is, and also best because epilepsy, there are so many different types, and there are some where they're called grand mal seizures, and it's like when you're fully gagging and not in the fun drag way.
I was going to say, we don't mean
not
gagging,
honey. Hoonty. Gagging hoonty. Yeah, not like that. Like you're on the floor and you're foaming and you're not present.
Your body's actually seizing.
Right,
yeah.
it's seizing.
Which a lot of people don't understand the difference between like
yes.
the grand mal seizure, and that they don't understand that there's
so the definition of seizing is literally to like become flexed and relaxed and flexed and relaxed. Yeah. And so I think there is this kind of perception that all seizures are like that, when it's actually super misunderstood. There are so many different types of seizures. And so it was a long road to find out what type I have. And I have focal seizures. And so they can come on from like physical stress, which was really hard for me because I grew up with body dysphoria and eating disorders, and so I had to stop working out for a really long time, like for almost a year and a half, because they can be brought on by physical
so far
activity.
I'm going on like 34 years of not working out, and that's cumulative.
And so that was hard, and then so focal seizures, you basically it's so hard to explain. You kind of like go into another place in your brain, and it's almost kind of like there's like a film over reality. Like you know what's happening, you're present. Like if I had one while I was driving, I'd be able to pull over. But it's hot, my eyes feel hot, like I'm tired, sensitive to light. And so the longest they've ever lasted is like 2 minutes. They're very short.
Okay.
And
Same.
so
sorry.
Key. Oh boy.
Oh, that was funny. I can't even one up that. Good job.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah,
for once,
exactly.
I can actually make the good joke.
Yeah.
Good job.
I'm proud of you.
And so, but like the road to finding out that I had seizure, like I actually, the best part was the epilepsy was because of a surgery that I had to fix my quote unquote chronic illness. I wouldn't even call it that. So
Interesting.
I don't know.
So did it made it worse?
So I actually
or like fix one problem caused another.
I had brain surgery, and it gave me epilepsy as a result. Okay. And so like a part of the diagnosis was I was starting to have seizures, but I was not epileptic. And then the seizure, it's very common, or the surgery, it's very common for certain types of brain surgeries to kind of leave lasting marks.
No, I mean, that's like such a big thing with like complicated illnesses, is they can oftentimes treat it, but like our medicine is so far from perfect. I mean, the main thing I've been suffering from for like, one of the main things you suffer from after you get a bone marrow transplant and get cured from cancer is then you have to deal with graft versus host disease.
Yes, exactly.
Which is like another nasty thing. It's a completely unique, different, but like parallel thing.
Yeah, right. And that's very similar, not as extreme, but very similar for, a lot of mental illness, any kind of mental health, like medication for mental health issues, and also medication for HIV is incredibly it's 3 different really strong medications put into one, and so the side effects are often not more difficult because you're not going to die from the side effects, but they affect your daily life.
Which is why I hate the term side effect.
Yeah.
If it affects your daily life, it's a direct effect.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's totally marketing to call things side effects.
Oh, of course.
But
absolutely.
like, it's just not accurate, right?
I mean, one of the listed side effects on multiple medications I took is death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
exactly.
Oh my
Maybe
God.
fatal. You're like, that's not a side effect. That's permanent.
You know, like how when you made a MySpace, okay, I dated myself a little bit, but you know how
I wouldn't know about that. I'm too young.
I also dated myself when I had a MySpace.
He catfished
no one else
himself. Oh, I love how we went on different talks. I was like, he catfished himself.
Yeah. Oh, that's really funny.
That's fun. So like my MySpace like little like blurb at the top was like side effects include death, because I thought I was so edgy. I didn't even listen to My Chemical Romance. I just thought I was.
You just quoted them because that's what you do.
Right.
When you have a MySpace.
That's what you do.
I think not on a tangent, but I think my MySpace currently, the last time I logged in, it was like wintertime, and so it has like this snowy background, and it's Nick Lachey and Jessica I don't even know her last name. Jessica Simpson.
Oh my
singing
God.
a Christmas duet. I'm fairly certain that's my MySpace.
Ooh, if you don't know, now you know.
Exactly. Anyways, please continue. Speaking of chronic illness, let's talk about Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson. Yeah.
And so, I don't even remember really where we were, but
you're talking about how you end up getting this
side effect is
epilepsy
death.
because of brain surgery.
So
you got,
I had brain surgery. I think it was the 9th of July last year.
Last year?
Yes.
Very
and
recent.
So it's almost,
okay.
it's so funny because it's funny that you're like, oh, recent, and I'm like, so long ago. But in reality, for brain surgery, it's
I think
still
that's
fresh.
That's a common thing, I think, with chronic illness. And this podcast, please, weigh in on this.
Yeah, of course.
But it's almost like, different universes, time works differently. When it feels like as soon as you find out you have some kind of permanent or chronic illness, that all of a sudden time does change. It feels does. Like time changes.
It's funny because the moment that you find out is the moment of a car crash.
Yes.
Everything is slow. Everything's muted.
Yeah.
You can barely hear. And then as soon as you kind of reach the 75%, well, that healing is different for everyone, but when you're
acceptance,
right, when you're on the cusp of quote unquote recovery.
Sorry, I've been trying to adjust a little bit.
No, it's okay. But at that point, you almost time it's all of that lagginess speeds back up. And it's
then you feel like you're catching up or you're behind. Or
yeah, totally.
I had my in March was my 5-year HIV anniversary. So this is 5 years, and I literally was like, oh my God, it's been 5 years already, and I'm like, it's only been 5 years.
Yeah,
it felt like I feel like I've lived a lifetime in these 5 years.
It's a weird thing where it feels like half of your life has taken place before your diagnosis, and half of your life has taken place after.
Yes.
No matter where
what the time frame is.
I mean, obviously, in the first couple weeks, it's still so fresh and new. But by the time it was 4 or 5 months out, by the time that I was leaving San Francisco, it did so much feel wow, no, this has
been years.
This has been, because it's such a thing where you have to accept it. You have so much you have to overcome and accept as a part of what reality is, that there's this fundamental thing of there is life before this was reality, and there's life after this is what reality means to you.
I think we may have talked about that on the first episode.
Probably.
I think
memory loss is somewhat of a side effect of lots of stress and other medications. So
we will never remember anything. So be prepared for the same jokes over and over again,
have
people.
The same podcast every single week.
Yep. And that's the reason that they have a podcast in the first place, is because without it, they wouldn't.
Yeah, because we wouldn't be able to tell our stories. We would remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
for all we know, we might have 3 podcasts out there. We
51st
don't know. Yeah, we can remember.
When I was talking shit about the other Illest podcast, little did I know that was just me. That was just me also, and I was like, man, that guy.
God, what an idiot! This is a stupid idea. We'll do it better. And then 10 years down the road, someone's like, you realize that was you, right? And you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never done a podcast.
Hey, we should start a podcast. I think
that's a great idea.
This is Who's on First. It's a Laurel and Hardy situation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But that's one of the things we talked about is I said, when I got my HIV diagnosis, I felt very much it was very much there was me before the diagnosis, and there was me after. It's not like I'm living with HIV now, and I feel and I've said the same thing about sexual abuse. The people, they, oh, I'm a survivor. Now you adapt, or you live with this forever. And I was like, this isn't something you experience and then adapt your life to. I said, when that happened to me, that took me off the path I was on.
Yes.
And put me on a different path.
Yeah, it's like you're in Candyland and you took the little slide over to the other side of the board.
Whatever that.
It's like you were in Candyland, and then your character was just placed in Chutes and Ladders, and you're well, I mean, this is also a game, I guess.
Yeah,
it's a kind of crummier game, but I'm gonna play it.
Exactly.
It's Chutes and Ladders is a harder game for people with illness. Let me just say, it's a
just
lot of climbing.
I never liked that game. Ever. Now I know why.
Yeah, now I know why.
I started out in Candyland and someone put me on Chutes and Ladders.
It's for cis white-head able-bodied folks.
Yeah, exactly. Stupid. Those
Idiot
stupid
game.
privileged people who still play Candyland.
Idiots.
I hate them.
I hate them. Fuck them.
Not friendly to the diabetic. Yeah.
We could talk all day about how Candyland is the most
ableist board game.
Problematic board game.
I would like to do an entire episode where we just take Candyland and compare it and explain how it is the most accurate representation of life.
Which is funny because there is a game called The Game of Life, which is not as accurate as Candyland.
Exactly. Nor is fun.
Nor is fun.
No, absolutely.
Who wants to pay bills? Not me.
Yeah, there was like a peppermint princess or something in Candyland.
Yes,
I related to that on the spiritual level.
Yeah. I always related to the licorice villain. Was he a villain? Or was he a prince?
No, I think he was a villain. Maybe he was a villain prince.
A villainous prince.
Probably
villainous
both.
Prince.
I mean, the monarchy
Most princes are villains.
Yeah, the monarchy is
Yeah.
inherently oppressive towards the common class.
Right,
so.
right. Fuck the bourgeoisie.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I liked. I think the princess was actually like the snowy, like the cold one, which is why I related. There's like pretty.
She was Frozen
powerful,
before Frozen,
but
or
yeah,
whatever her
exactly,
name
but
was.
very cold.
Yeah, yeah. She was Kristen Bell before Kristen Bell.
So
yeah, no, that was Kristen Bell was the little one.
Elsa? No, she was Elsa.
No, she wasn't. It was Idina Menzel. I know this. Don't ask. Don't question me.
Oh my God, you're right, and I'm wrong, and I have no clue about pop culture in any way. Okay.
I don't have any idea about pop culture, but if Idina Menzel has done it, I probably know.
That's wicked as fuck.
I know.
Okay, we are like 20 minutes in, and we have gotten the best joke already. So it's just going downhill from here.
Yeah,
like there's no.
Turn it off right now, people. We're just going to be
Please stop
recycling
listening.
commentary.
We can't
Can't
best
top
this.
that one. Yeah,
No,
that
we
was
can't.
good. Mm-hmm.
So may I ask, why did you get this? Because I assume it wasn't a whim.
Oh.
I assume it
Why
wasn't
did you
just
get this? You didn't have
like-
anything better to
Why
do?
did
like
you get
brain
epilepsy?
surgery.
Well, I needed something to talk about at parties, and so I
Yeah. I tell people ask why I'm gluten free, and I say I wasn't getting enough. Why I have celiac? I said, well, I wasn't getting enough attention on a regular diet, so I decided to change it to this one.
It really was just my last straw attempt to grasp.
Yeah, no one noticed me, so
Attention.
I decided to fake a death. Like what? No. I just made up a illness.
You know what though? Like, sidebar before I do say that, like that is kind of the way. I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Either people treat your illness like it's nothing or like it's everything.
Yes.
And that there's like no in between, right?
Yes,
and it's
there's-
so weird.
yeah, absolutely.
It's just so strange because you're like living it, and other people are kind of trying to like be a part of that experience, and it's really strange.
And they will absolutely like challenge your knowledge on it. Because if you find out you're sick, you're immediately an authority on that information, like on that topic.
If you want to be a part of this and have it do all that, just you can give us money, and that's way you can be kind of like a part of this, and you can have
and then
it be
we
like,
can make fun of you for all of the things you don't know about
like
illness. Yeah.
So if you want to be like having any of that focus, just give us money, please.
That was a rough segue, but thanks for the plea for money.
I know it's a rough segue, but I've just am poor, so like that's.
I need money.
Yes.
Talking
Money,
about money
please.
is always a rough segue. Yeah.
Rough segue is the name of my sex tape, actually.
It's the name of my first band.
Yeah, it is her sex tape. It like starts just like a weird documentary about the milling industry, and then it turns into a sex tape. It's like
it's quite the rough segue.
It just cuts into something. That's
and
why it's
then
called
I end
rough
up
segue.
having sex on a Segway. It's crazy.
On a Segway.
It's crazy. Anyways, we were digressing, so I feel like I should try to bring it back a little bit because otherwise we're just gonna.
I know.
I don't know
if I don't know if you can call it digressing if we never actually started with the topic.
That's true. Oh my God, we're so far in, and no one even knows what's happening. So should I just kind of say just kind of start from the beginning and like summarize?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would really be awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So in April of last year, so like a little over a year ago, I was working as a nanny and a homeschooling teacher in McKinleyville. And so my schedule was split.
Where only nannies who do homeschooling can get jobs in McKinleyville.
The best part about this was my boss was a surgeon at St. Joseph Hospital in Eureka.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so she ended up being kind of a key cog in the wheel of my diagnosis, which is so interesting.
Was she like kind of the person that was like, tell me your symptoms, I think that you have this kind of thing?
She kind of was. So like the doctor, I don't want to say that he was incompetent. I think I
can say it if you'd like me to.
Okay, then please say it.
He was absolutely completely incompetent.
Right.
Yeah, fuck you, Greg.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even want to say his name. He was my mother is a pediatric geneticist, and I know that being in the medical field is extremely complex, and there's so much going on, and I have really complicated feelings about it. But so my boss was an ER trauma surgeon, and so I was getting that money, and and my schedule was so great. So I like worked in the morning and worked in the afternoon, so I had the nights and the middays free. And so if I partied hardy the night before, I would just take a nap in the midday before my second shift. Yeah, it was great. It really promoted a terrible work ethic
really
and lifestyle.
Yeah,
yes.
Bad choices.
Like the movie, like Bad Santa, I'm just bad nanny. That's like me.
Ooh, that sounds like a great
bad
sequel.
Nanny. Ooh, yeah. Fran Drescher.
Also
starring Fran Drescher.
She wasn't a bad nanny. She was perfect.
She was bad.
Also, I
though.
think that Bad Nanny is probably the name of someone's sex tape.
Oh.
That could be yours.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Trademark. I know that's not how trademark works, but I'm just going to say the word. Copyrighted.
Yeah.
Hollywood, call us. Or like Pornhub, call us.
Exactly.
Like either
anybody that has money that would like to call us, please do.
Basically, we're still asking for money.
Yes.
So the night beforehand, I went to like a kickback at my friend's house, stayed up really, really, really late. And so during my midday shift, I decided like I should probably take a nap. There is a child who I am responsible for, right? I mean, I'm not driving her anywhere. I was just kind of nannying her in the home.
Them alive, yeah.
Right. But still, like I was like, I need to go take a rest. So I went home and I tried to lay down, and my heart was like racing in a way that I had never experienced before. Like it felt like I was like on some sort of amphetamine. Like I was like, it was unbelievable.
And were you?
No, that was the weird thing. I hadn't taken it that day.
Yeah, not that day.
Okay.
Normally I'm on coke, but
Absolutely.
not that day.
Yeah, totally. Not that day.
Not that day, which is what made it so weird.
Yeah, exactly. It's
right.
unexpected. Mm-hmm.
So I started texting my best friend in LA, and I thought I was being coherent. And she was like, dude, I don't understand any of the texts you're sending.
Oh, wow.
She only understood one that said, I think I'm going to die.
Oh, God.
And so she's like, wake your partner up and tell them to take you to the hospital. So they got me up, and luckily they are an ex-army doctor.
Oh,
and so
wow.
I know, like, if that were not the case, I'm sure that this, something really damaging would have probably happened. So they did, like, a test on me where you, like, lift your arms up. If your left arm goes up slower, or your right arm goes up slower, or, like, you smile and the right side is slower, then you can kind of say, like, okay, like, this is a stroke, right? Like, you can or it's Bell's palsy or something like that. For those of you who don't know, Bell's palsy is, like, it's not a stroke, but it manifests like a stroke. I think it's a part of like Lyme's disease.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So when you have Lyme's disease, you can have Bell's palsy, which presents as a stroke because you have partial paralysis of your body. And then you can have something called a walking stroke, where you can still move your legs and walk around, but it's
what athletes get.
Yes.
If they get sick, they just walking stroke. Yeah.
Right, a walking stroke.
I would never get walking stroke or walking pneumonia. I don't.
Because you don't exercise.
I don't do anything. Yeah. Mine would just be straight up pneumonia.
Since I'm so active, that's why I have a walking
exactly.
stroke.
Your legs work perfectly.
Yeah,
and you're like,
but this will turn into walking pneumonia. I don't feel like doing it.
So my partner works in law enforcement, and so they're very knowledgeable about like taking people to the hospital and like the way that works and like what we need to do. And so they tested me to see if I had paralysis, and I had paralysis. And so they took me to St. Joe's. And for those of you who are listening who don't live here, it's literally the only semi-decent hospital that we have, correct?
Only semi-decent.
All of what I just said is a key phrase.
Like if I was having a fatal heart attack, I'd be like, take me to St. Joe's. If I die on the way, I'd rather that than go to any of the other ones on the way.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. right?
I think like all of us have gotten diagnosed at St. Joe's. Me, you, I think Jeff.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, this is.
It's the only one that's worth going to. At this point, in my experience. Actually, I think the one in Fortuna might be better, but that's,
But it's Fortuna.
We need to like have flyers for people on the way out. Like, hey, do you want to get on a podcast?
Yeah.
You want to get on a podcast?
Oh my God, you guys are,
call me.
That's the sweet spot.
Absolutely.
So I was taken by my partner to St. Joe's, and as all of you know who have been to the ER, you go through triage, which is where they kind of assess the patient.
Did your partner take you to the ER, or did you ride in an ambulance?
My partner took me.
Because I've been told that if it's an like we don't really have like an after hours care, so no matter what it is, you have to go to the ER. But if it's an actual emergency, they say just doesn't matter if you can like drive or have someone drive you to the hospital. If you need to be seen immediately, to call an ambulance. Which is something that I didn't know, but often gets abused. But it is really important to know.
So I actually segue I'm going to try not to diverge or divert too much, but I was recently I've had a bunch of concussions, and I recently was I was T-boned by someone who was texting and driving last month, and suffered a concussion and a seizure, a trauma-based seizure because of it.
Oh God!
And the cop on the scene asked me if I wanted an ambulance, and like in the back of my mind, I knew that if I said yes, I would get seen, I'd get prioritized.
Yeah.
And since I have epilepsy and had a brain seizure recently, I should say yes.
Yeah.
But there is this like fear, like full disclosure, have still not even opened my medical bills from my brain surgery, because if you're a millennial, you can understand, like even if you're making, like my partner makes a fairly decent wage, I don't at the moment, but even that, you're paying that money mostly is going to bills anyways. So you're not really seeing a lot of that money, even if you do get paid
there's no reason to almost even look at it, because it's impossible.
I told my own mother, who works in the medical field, like I would rather go bankrupt than open one of those fucking and I'm going to go on a socialist tangent, but I just don't think it's fair for me to be born with something that I have to break my back to pay off for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So anyways, he in his mind was like, I'm going to be able to drive her there faster than an ambulance would. And that was like our top priority, was like, we couldn't even think about anything else because he was so in shock. Yeah. I've had a lot of things go wrong, but nothing to this extent, right? Mm-hmm. And so we were kind of stumped. And so we got there, and I was expecting nothing but like people like asking me how I am and like checking in. And
like
the
running up to the
nurse,
door with a gurney and being, like IVs and stat and all that. Yeah,
exactly. Like that, like what you see in the movies or whatever.
Because I want to point out, because if I don't want to, I don't mean to use the term people like us, but like for me personally, I don't go to the doctor if I don't have. I mean, I go to the doctor a lot now because of my chronic illness. But before, I didn't want to go to the doctor or the ER unless it was very serious. Yeah. So we kind of expect that they know how serious it is for us, and that's not the case.
It's not, and so
it was like the only time I'd been to like the hospital in several years.
It was the second time I'd been to a hospital in my entire life. Yeah.
Totally. Well, I mean, when I was a kid, like my parent actually like were freaking out about that kind of stuff. But,
my parents were like, "Can you breathe? Are you bleeding?"
Yeah, that's like doctor. Yeah. My mom's a doctor, so she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, is your arm attached to your body? Then yours."
Did you bring your limb to me and your other arm? Then you're fine. Go back outside and play.
Well, I was a dumb kid, so I like broke a few bones and such. So maybe that's.
I'd never had any kind of physical trauma like that growing up. I also wasn't active. I didn't like to do anything. Not like lazy, but like I was like, I'd rather sit inside and read a book or play a video game.
Than be on a sports team.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to jump off roofs.
I never did sports. I won't say I wasn't lazy. I was just bad.
I just made poor choices starting at an early age.
I would try to do a thing and somehow do the opposite, and just not in the good way.
Not in a good way.
Yeah.
So we got in, we talked to the triage nurse, and keep in mind, like I had like left lateral paralysis at the time, so it was very hard to speak. Mm-hmm. It was very hard to speak. It was hard to kind of engage in the typical tests that they perform. And so this woman looked at my partner and said, "What drugs is she on?"
I knew it. I
knew it.
I knew that that's what they were going to say.
And my face is the right side of my face was angry.
I was going to say, I didn't know that I had a bitch face when only half my face was working, but I sure found out that night.
Yeah, the right side of my face was furious. The left side of my face was charging.
Yeah. Rebooting. It was still
rebooting. Yeah.
Phantom of the Resting Bitch Face.
Phantom of the Resting. Yeah, it's our new
That's
opera.
the name of my sex tape.
Ooh. We're circling back. I love it.
Absolutely.
The rule of three.
Keeping it relative.
Yes.
Like making sure it all connects. Yeah.
And so he was like, "Oh, she's a nanny and a kindergarten teacher. She doesn't do drugs." And the woman paused, looked at us, and said, "Okay, what drugs is she on?"
Yeah.
And she would not quit. And I started getting really offended. But I was like also so delayed.
Yes.
I was
like you weren't the person that should have been arguing that fact.
Right.
Or could be arguing that fact.
Yeah. And so I literally couldn't talk. So imagine having you've seen My Fair Lady. Imagine having 8 marbles in your mouth trying to tell someone the deets. You know what I mean? I couldn't do it.
We're not going to believe you're sick unless you can explain it to us in proper, AP style English. I had one of my coworkers had a client because I found out I had HIV with meningitis, and so then one of my coworkers' clients had also had meningitis, but they had the kind that you die from in 2 days, 48 hours.
Yes.
So she was literally on the floor of St. Joe's ER. I think she was having a seizure. She was definitely unconscious. And they were literally ignoring her because they just assumed she was detoxing, and her brother-in-law had to raise fucking hell in the ER to get them to take her back. She would have been dead in minutes.
Which is honestly there are so many layers to why that's awful.
Yeah.
And it's and I remember thinking in that moment, I was like, so you're telling me that if I am on drugs right now, you're not prioritizing my cure.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And
so
it's
how is what I've taken relevant to what's happening?
Exactly. So if I were a victim of the opioid crisis, or B, not one, but choosing to partake in drugs, my life doesn't matter to you. My health doesn't matter to you.
Exactly.
Which is so dangerous, because then they get to pick and choose who they think is
worthy of
care.
Because also I was going to say, you could have been on fucking 24 different drugs, and none of them would be causing what you were going through.
Right.
So, I'm on this, and this. Oh, you're just having a
side effect.
A side effect. Exactly.
Of something that could have also been a legitimate prescription. The only time I hallucinated was when I had a prescription medication in me.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly. It's totally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, from the get, we were kind of facing some opposition, and my partner was being very calm about it. He was like, don't stress. She has to filter through a lot of things here. Let's just take that with a grain of salt and move on to the next step. And you're in this hospital bed. Let's do whatever.
Yeah.
So
did you have to sit in the ER? How long did you have to sit in the ER before they took you back?
It was a really long.
How many hours?
Yeah.
It was.
We've got a bet going on. No, I'm just kidding.
The last time that I was in the ER for the car crash was...
No, for that.
No, I know.
Okay,
but
cool.
that one was 3 hours for the car crash.
Okay, that was nothing.
And
which is fast. Might as well be 15 minutes.
And so I think I want to answer that question well enough, but it's just that part of it is such a blurred memory.
No problem.
Oh yeah, no.
So I think probably only 45 minutes. So maybe not that long.
I was just asking because the average everyone I've talked to has been minimum of 4. Usually 6 hours that people wait in St. Joe's. I had 103 temperature, which then quickly went to 104 temperature, and I sat and waited in the ER for 6 hours. At 105, you start doing things like going deaf, suffering permanent brain damage.
And you
can
see
die.
Auras.
Yeah, exactly.
You're having a traumatizing experience.
Yes, and 6 hours. Yeah. So, anyways, that's the only reason I asked.
So no, for my most recent experience after the car crash, it was 3.5, 4 hours just for them to be you're fine, go home.
Oh my God.
And this one, time, we've talked about that before. Time was so relative to me
in
that moment. And I could barely even understand what was happening. So we could have been there for upwards of 2 hours, but I don't actually remember. It would not surprise me if it had been like an hour and a half.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest,
right?
I don't know that I would have known that it was 6 hours if it like my mom wasn't there and been like, oh my gosh, it's been 6 hours, you know?
Yeah, totally.
The only reason that I remember like how long it was is I know it was enough time to completely kill my phone battery.
Oh God.
Do you guys
from 100 to
experience
0,
anytime I go to the ER, my phone is almost already dead? It's like the universe doesn't decide to send me to the ER when my phone is at 100%.
No, absolutely.
It's always when my phone is at like 35%. And then you're in like a zone that pulls a lot of extra data. And so you're just like, cool, now
and you're like calling and texting everybody you know, and then it dies. And
to
then,
make sure that, anyway.
Yeah, I know.
So I finally get seen. The best part was I was sitting, they didn't have a bed yet. So I was just sitting in a chair in like the kind of alleyway of just holding my head, like trying not to vomit, like whatever. So I get seen. They don't really run any tests. They kind of just talk to me and they're like, hey, smile, you know, and like they can see that my paralysis is kind of going away. And so they're like, well, you're 26, and so this is not a stroke because you're 26.
That's not
right. And he was like,
real.
It's so rare for young people.
Rare does not mean impossible.
I know. And so they basically didn't even run a single. Watch House for God's sake.
Yeah, like take a stats class. I've never taken a stats class, and I still know that's not real.
You should watch Scrubs because that's the most accurate medical comedy on TV. Yeah. So
don't watch the last season. Don't watch
don't watch the last
season.
If you haven't seen Scrubs, you're probably not actually alive because everyone's seen it. But if
I've never seen Scrubs.
Don't watch the last season.
I'm also not alive though.
Oh.
So I'm probably yeah, that's my big secret.
You're an aura.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a phantom.
People have usually much more harsh names for what I am, but yes.
But yes.
That generally sums it up.
So basically, I'm going to try and start like being a bit less detailed just to like, because there's so many components to this.
But this is your experience, you know?
So basically, I get seen. They don't really do any tests on me. And the doctor comes in. And I have enough experience with my partner being ex-military doctor and my mother being a doctor to know that anxiety is the last thing you ever diagnose with when you don't know what else it could possibly be. So he looks into my eyes and says, so do you ever get anxiety attacks?
Panic attacks.
Did your heart ever just race because of anxiety? And at that point, I totally lied. I was like, no, never, because I was so offended. I was like, if I say that I do, he's not going to look for another answer.
No, they absolutely won't.
And so I said,
they'll tell you to go home and take a long hot shower.
I was like, yes. I was like, no, I never have. And my partner was like, that's a lie, she does. And I like looked at my partner like, you fucking idiot.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I have a plan here.
I have a plan, you
idiot.
I'm like Esme from the Emperor's New Groove. I just have a fucking side plot.
That everyone really appreciates, but
right.
No one can,
And so he was like, so we're done here. And so, and I'm so, like, if it weren't for my partner, I probably, like, I literally could have died because my partner stepped out into the hallway and kind of like said, like, look, dude, you need to run a CT scan with contrast because something is wrong with her brain. And I know that that's what it is. And I don't know how I know, but I know. Mm-hmm. And so they did. And the bedside manner was just great. He like walks up to me and he was like, so do you know what a brain aneurysm is? And I was just
why
like,
I'm here, idiot. I'm the one laying in the bed in the ER. You're the one that went to school. You tell me.
And it was the only time throughout the entire process that I felt scared.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no.
You don't know what's happening. You're not the doctor. That's why you're there.
And so the best part was he was like, so this is what you have. You have a brain aneurysm. There's a density on the right side of your scan, which means there's an aneurysm there. And we are not equipped to deal with that. So literal quote from my doctor, shop around for a neurosurgeon.
Shop around?
Shop around for a neurosurgeon.
I'm not buying a practical pair of pumps.
The next best part was like, they're not going to believe you, so you really have to convince them. And I was like, you are the doctor with all of the connections.
Yeah, like the doctor should be able to be
Why
like,
don't
yo,
you convince them?
Here's an X-ray thing. Just check it. Like,
he was like, our one and only neurosurgeon is on vacation with his wife. And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. He should be, because he's the one and only neurosurgeon in this county.
I bet that gives him a lot of anxiety.
Right.
Which,
he should be. He's your next guest on the podcast.
Oh my God.
And so like, my husband, my partner, called my mother just to like keep her kind of up to date. And she was like, look, here's what's happening tonight, right now, right as we were discharged. She's like, you are driving to San Fran and we're going to get this dealt with. And I was like, God damn it, woman, I need 5 minutes of rest. So we went home, we slept on it, and we went to San Fran the next day. Literally, we drove to Parnassus. We walked into the ER. I gave them I asked for the scan on a CD. I'm like, why shop around, right? Like, give me the fucking CD that my scan is on. Sorry, this could be a family show, and I said
it's not.
It's not.
No, it's certainly not.
Certainly not. So I gave them
your
the
scan
CD.
on a CD. That's like I just. Yeah.
I
okay.
literally.
So we don't have enough time to talk about how.
I handed them the CD. I said, "Hi, my name is blah. This is a CD. I may or may not have an aneurysm. Here we go."
You didn't tell her your name was Olive? Like, that's
well, it's not my given name, so I'm not going to say it here. So so I told him my name. We went back, and I was literally immediately cared for. Like, immediately right off the bat. I was getting tests, this and that. And so eventually we found out that it was the actual name for what it is. It presents as a brain tumor. It's called a cavernous hemangioma. Wow. And it looks like a piece of popcorn, like 3 pieces of popcorn in your brain, because it's a tumor that is cavernous. It has like depth to it. Yeah. And so what it is it's a cluster of cells that starts to slowly bleed into your brain until you can't function anymore.
Shit.
And so they were like, so here's your choice. Your choice is to hope this goes away or have surgery. Yeah. If you have surgery, there is a 60% chance you'll be paralyzed for life because it's sitting on your motor strip. God. So you either are going to be paralyzed or you're going to die. So you have to choose between being alive and paralyzed and being not alive.
You know, one of the sorry to interrupt, but one of the reasons I feel like we or at least I really wanted to participate in this, start this podcast, is because one of the common threads through people with chronic illness, whether it's considered severe or not, or whatever it is I don't know how to like put this into words to make it for it to make sense, but that moment right there of having that life or death, being forced to make a life or death decision, being forced to advocate for yourself when you don't know how to advocate for yourself, being forced to make decisions based on information you don't have.
When I'm the least educated person about it in the room.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And you're the one, and having to do those things when you are legitimately not qualified to do them.
Right.
You know, and that is one of the biggest challenges and I don't want to say drawbacks, but like challenges and hurdles that people with chronic illness face is constantly having to do exactly that when that's not their responsibility.
Right, totally.
You know?
And there's a part of it where you kind of like, well, with yours, like, admittedly, the choice was a little bit more cut and dry in some ways. Like, it was still a very intense, hard choice to make, and a very intense, hard thing to like have to face, because if they present it as just like, you have to do this, but like for me, like, getting a transplant has its own set of complications, but I kind of assumed it was like, you know, rolling a die or something like that, where either way there's a different chance. Like, if the transplant didn't work, chemo had a chance of making it so I could have the life that I, you know, have now, more or less.
Totally.
But it was a lower chance than like if I did it. And so like either one, like I couldn't dwell on like making the wrong choice, because yes, technically if I had complete future sight, it would be easier to know, oh, this is exactly what will happen if I do this.
Totally.
This is exactly. But it's one of those things where that choice is something that's so painful, because something that's put on you, even though like looking back at it, when you're outside of that, you can tell, okay, well, statistically, well, mathematically, this is the right choice, but you have that pressure of like, well, I don't want to fuck up.
Yeah.
God, yeah, I'm dealing with my life here. This isn't like I can't just re-roll a character.
Right.
You know, like this
I love
D&D.
the D&D, the subtle D&D
references
happening.
shoving down the throats of our listeners.
Yeah, totally. It's such an interesting. It was that moment. So like I think I mentioned earlier that the moment that I was told kind of the incorrect diagnosis that I could have an aneurysm was the moment that I was scared, and the only moment. And I think what I realized was everyone in my life was very scared and very sad and very worried. And I'm sure that you all have been through this experience where everyone around you is emoting in such a strong way that you're almost not allowed to emote.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I can't remember if I think I said this on the first episode, but I comforted my doctor who gave me my HIV diagnosis.
Yes.
Yeah, you
because
you're like, it's okay.
You did a good job. You know,
the role that you are not supposed to
and
be.
People love to preach the whole, you're sick, you're not responsible, self-care, all that bullshit.
Yeah.
But then as soon as it happens, they're like, I'm so sorry for you. I'm so sad. Please comfort me about your illness. It is a responsibility that people consciously or subconsciously absolutely put on you.
There's something that I was even talking to my therapist and I was experiencing when I was going through it in the hospital, where people would want to visit me, would want to go and visit me in the hospital. They did a lot, and it's such a long drive. And part of me really of course I need the company, but so much of me was like, yeah, but that's me going and literally taking up a day or more of someone's life for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I'm like, I don't want to force them, but I also knew if the tables were flipped and there was someone close friend of mine, I would go and I wouldn't think anything of just going and spending that time with him. And yes, it meant a lot to me, but also it was one of those things where you were kind of but this is putting so much pressure on them. I don't want to disturb the routines of the people close to me.
I don't want to inconvenience their healthy life by
because of my life
illness.
or death situation.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, for me, someone who deals with fatigue, chronic fatigue is the first quote unquote side effect of basically everything I have, including the medications.
Yeah.
And so people, they want to, I know not everybody is like this, and I'm particularly cynical, so just take that into consideration when you basically hear anything that comes out of my mouth. But they want to pat themselves on the back by doing something for you, but you're like, listen, you coming and visiting me in the hospital means I have to take energy that I don't have to make you feel good about what you did for me.
Dude.
Yes.
Oh my God, you use up so many spoons on these. Sorry, I'm being so loud. You use up so many spoons that you could have used washing yourself.
Yes.
Or eating.
Or preparing the food. Or I could have used those spoons on resting, because you know what? When you have chronic illness, resting takes energy.
Yes, it
does.
does.
Don't know what you cannot.
I don't know if you
guys.
We might be talking about something that isn't common knowledge, but if you don't know about this, look up spoons. The spoon theory.
I
talked
guys
about
have
it.
Clearly heard our first episode, episode 0. So why didn't you do your fucking homework?
Do your
No, please talk about it again, because it's literally.
I don't remember who wrote this, but I heard about it first when I was the caretaker for a woman with oh my gosh, what's it called when literally your entire body hurts and it's hard to
fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia. Oh my God, life.
Relationships.
Yeah, so I was the caretaker for a woman with fibromyalgia, and that was the first time that I ever heard about the spoon theory, which is one specific act can take up a certain if in a day, it's like Weight Watchers points. If you have 23 spoons in a day, each act takes a certain amount. So let's say washing takes up 7 spoons, making a meal takes up 7 spoons, and getting dressed takes up 3, and emoting with people takes up 4. And you're at 21 spoons already, and you have 3 left in the entire day.
And it's noon.
And it's noon.
Yeah, and not only do you have a limited amount of spoons?
Right.
You also have less than everybody else.
Right.
And everything you do
exactly.
takes twice as many.
So someone without fibromyalgia or without a cavernous hemangioma recovering from brain surgery might have 50 spoons.
Yeah.
And then we have like 16 spoons.
Yeah, on a good day.
On a good day. And so...
And getting out of bed takes at least 4. So,
oh my God, it really does.
Yeah.
Putting on my slippers and feeding my dogs takes 4
yeah,
spoons.
opening my eyes. That was one of the things that was the most impactful on that was like when she was like going through her day and the woman telling the story stopped and said, "You opened your eyes, that took a spoon." And I was like, I can relate to that on such a deep level.
Right after my brain surgery, it literally took effort to open my own eyes.
Things like I would sometimes have to take breaks just walking around my house or something. Like I would be like, okay, so it was a 2-story apartment. I'm upstairs. I'm going to take a break partway through the stairs. I need to have a rest.
I'm going to take a nap on the landing.
Yeah, I need to put a pillow down there.
Yeah, I need to have a rest stop on like stair number 6. Like I'm just going to sit down here for a bit, up or down. Doesn't like matter. Like it was one of those things where like, I would be using my hands to basically pull myself because little things like that. Yeah. Or like when I would be like going around and shopping, there'd be times where I would get so short of breath that like everyone around me was freaking out. These strangers were thinking I might be having a heart attack because I would be like, "Hey, I know I'm like shopping at your little boutique. Do you have a chair here?"
Can I sit down? Yeah, I had to take when I got out of the hospital. I had to take breaks in between bites. I had to.
Oh my God.
I would take. Feeding myself was the only thing I could do. Feeding myself and using the restroom were the 2 only things I could do by myself. I needed help doing everything else.
Too.
And I would literally take a bite of food, maybe 2 if I was lucky. And I'd have to sit back because I was legitimately after 1 or 2 bites of food. Like it is, and obviously it's not still like that. But when you have chronic illness of any kind, fatigue is something that stays with you, and it's a real thing.
It does.
And it's a real thing that I can say empathetically, sympathetically, compassionately. That, and I mean this with all sincerity. If you have not experienced it, if you do not have a chronic illness, if you have not experienced fatigue to that level, no matter how much you think you understand, you don't.
So until you only have 15 spoons in a day, you don't understand the resources it takes to do one simple act.
Yep, exactly.
So it has been about how long? Like not quite a year, almost a year.
Yeah, not quite a year.
And like you're still on like the path of recovery. Like obviously, even though you have mentioned that you do have the side effect that you do still have seizures. Are you on like a medication for that?
Yeah, I'm on.
Also, just not to undermine you by any way, keep it. Also, just know that any question that we ask is optional.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know that medication. I know things like that can be personal. We're gonna ask them.
Yeah.
I actually think this is a really I think there's like a stigma about not talking about medication. It's kind of like, and I get that it's also a comfort level aspect, but it's almost like not talking about your salary or who you vote for.
Yeah, totally.
You should talk about it.
Yeah.
You should. And so if you're uncomfortable about it, examine why that discomfort exists and try to push past it because
lean into that discomfort.
Lean into the discomfort because there are so many
people
people who could use your input. So the most common seizure medicine
and that education.
Yes.
Like just sometimes me telling people about the medication I'm taking has.
I wish I had known more about the medication options. Like,
so
this is very important.
Okay.
I was about to go into surgery. I was talking about how I was like the only one joking, to make everyone more comfortable. It's actually why I started getting into comedy was because I realized like it's my job to ease people through this process, even though I'm the main star of it, right? Yep. Like this is my sitcom, me getting a brain surgery. And so
the only reason I'm funny is because I almost died at least once, you know.
I mean, you have to almost die at least once to be funny.
I also wrote my first comedy set in a hospital bed. Like that's legitimately like, that's a thing. That's a form of processing.
I started my drag career because of my health issues. Like
I thought it was because of your thighs.
That's why I was successful in my drag career.
No padding needed, hunty. No padded needing, honey.
When I first started, my friend told me that a thigh gap was currency in the gay world. So let me tell you.
Currency. I love it. Honey. Mm-hmm. anyways, blah, 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 humor, blah, blah, blah. I have a funny story about that to add on to this later. But I remember specifically, like, in the recovery stage, oh my God, like, right after I was so groggy, like, right after the surgery, and I was in an isolation ward at first, and then I was moved into, I think, like, in the ICU, and then I was moved into, like, a general neuro surgery recovery ward. And I remember them having the discussion of, like, pain management with me first. They're like, are you allergic to any pain meds? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, my father is British Irish, and people who have strong Irish heritage metabolize pain medication quickly, which means, and if you're listening and you don't know what that means, it means that you'll take a pain medication and your body processes it so quickly that you start feeling pain soon after you've already taken it.
I was going to say, it works fast but not long.
Fast but not long. And so you're actually more prone to opiate addiction.
Yeah.
Because you need more opiates because opiates are actually not effective pain relievers. So they're not effective and you are metabolizing it faster, that means you're going to get tons of opiates in your system. And so you're much more likely to become addicted. And I personally do not have an addictive personality, but I told the nurses, like, I refuse opioids. I said, I know that you guys have drugs that you give to women who are breastfeeding after C-sections. And I know that they're opiate and steroid free because of, right?
I didn't know that.
Right. And so
I've never
PSA,
had a C-section,
if you are allergic to opiates or I'm not allergic, but if you are like me and you respond really poorly to them, or you have a family history of addiction, talk to them about pain relievers for pregnant nursing women who have had C-sections, because they have to give them opiate free.
That is like priceless information.
It is. It's like, honestly,
joking.
this is very, very important.
Yeah.
Especially because opiate addiction is like a hot topic issue right now.
And also one of the reasons they didn't believe you.
Right. Thank you. Oh, bringing it back. Full
Yeah.
circle. John Mulaney style.
Yeah.
Sorry, we were talking about John Mulaney earlier and how much we want to suck that D. I do.
I once had someone like at like a social gathering compare me to John Mulaney, and I was instantly seduced. I was instantly seduced, like 2 seconds, and I'm like,
you're like, my
is there
clothes
a closet?
Are off.
Yeah. Like, is there a bedroom that's empty here? Like, let's make this happen
or a
now.
car or a bathroom.
I think I have. I'm not sure if I have, but hopefully one day I get compared to Bianca Del Rio. She is my comic idol. Yeah, she is, like, I want to be her when I grow up.
You can't do it now.
Favorite, one of my top favorites from RuPaul's.
Yeah, my favorite of all. Like, yeah. And one of the most successful. We also need to
talk off the air about Naomi Smalls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay,
yes.
we'll take that conversation.
Those legs.
So, like, where I was trying to go with that is also, like, so you're still in this. It still affects you to this day. Like, we're talking about the origins of it, which is all a very intense and very important conversation to have. But also, a year out, it's not something that is entirely in your past. It affects so many aspects of your life, physically and mentally. And I was wondering if you could just go and talk a little bit more about, like, where you are now when it comes to, being someone who has recovered from. I wrote it down this time, unlike last week. I learned my lesson.
You said it like different.
Cavernous Hemangioma. Nope, I still can't.
Cavernous Hemangioma.
Cavernous Hemangioma.
Or you can call it a popcorn tumor, or you can call it a popcorn hemangioma, because it literally, like, I can show you both a picture of it afterwards.
Thank you.
No, thank you. But it looks like a couple of pieces of movie popcorn, like, stuck together.
Now that you no longer have them gnarly pops, as the
dem
cool
pops.
Call
I call it the pop rocks.
But they don't.
But they don't. Yeah, they don't rock.
So like, tell us about
because that's an important fact, because when everyone else around you forgets about your chronic illness, that doesn't mean that it goes away, and everybody thinks it does.
And everyone wants to be a part of the like, oh no, like, let's get through it together, baby process. But then when it's over, like,
when
there's
been 6 months, a year, 2 years.
Exactly. It kind of is like less on everyone's radar, but it still exists for you.
Scars in whatever ways that is. So can you talk about, like, what it is like now, being someone who still lives with having chronic illness?
I'm going to quickly touch on the pain medication thing real quick, because I remember I didn't finish that. But so I told them that I had this this intent of not having it. And literally they were like, well, that doesn't work for us, so we're going to have to give you some sort of opioid.
That doesn't work for you?
Right. So they were like, they literally said, which opioid makes you the least sick? Because you're not technically allergic. And I was like, well, I
had that same thing at the dentist literally like last week.
That they were like, we have to give you an opioid.
It was like, they were like Norco, and I was like, Norco causes hallucinations. And they're like, yeah, but if you don't have an allergy to it, that's what we use. And I'm like, well, I'm going to have an interesting ride back home.
As a way to determine how
I'm not going to drive. Like, I should clear, like, if you're on any kind of, like, intense pain medication or anti-anxiety stuff, like, please have a designated driver. You would be impaired. Yeah. But still, it's going to be a weird just trip back.
That's like using death as the only comparison for whether something is risky or not.
Right.
Like, totally. Oh, well, you're not going to die from it, so that makes it fine. No, it doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, so they were like, what's your opiate of choice, even though you don't want it? And the only even remotely successful, encounter I've had with an opiate was I was in a fire. My apartment complex caught on fire, and I was in a burn unit afterwards, and I was on Dilaudid. And I vomited the least. And I remember telling them that. I was like, so I vomit the least on Dilaudid. And they're like, okay, then we're going to give you Dilaudid.
Good God.
And I'm like, I can't believe that in the most prestigious healthcare, system in California, second to Stanford, I am still kind of not being listened to. It wasn't the nurses' fault. They were PSA, nurses at SFU, Parnassus, best in the world.
My nurses at St. Joe's Bar 1 was amazing.
Nurses literally make or break your healthcare experience.
I saw my 100%. Doctor, probably the doctor that I saw the doctor from the ER, obviously just when I was in the ER, and that's it. And then my other doctor, I may have seen them 2-3 times in the entire
and I
week
get
I
why.
was there.
But
no, totally. I'm not
why
upset
the
about
nurses
that.
become the key to your success.
The nurses make
and
the experience.
I remember going, I literally had the mask on my face in the surgery unit. They'd shaved my head. Oh, that's a whole other part of this. They shaved my head, put me under, and to my last breath, I was making jokes with the sterilization techs and the blood, the guy that checks your blood the entire time, basically a PhD in phlebotomy, if that's a thing.
And you're cracking jokes.
Anyways, so I think you were asking about
what it's like now.
So now, So the way that a brain surgery heals is in the beginning, you're prone to stuff like synesthesia. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
I've never heard of that.
So it's when you smell colors and words. Your senses are so jumbled because of the trauma, of some kind of trauma. Mm-hmm. So when I left the hospital, I left it surprisingly early, probably because before this, I was actually training.
What's the best smelling color? I kind of feel like I have to know. That's the fans will be furious.
Yeah, well, if we don't answer that question.
The fan will be furious.
Violet purple is the best smelling colors. Purple. Nice. Purple and green are the two best smelling colors.
Yeah, that makes sense. Green, I can totally see that.
The worst smelling color is red.
Really?
Yes.
I was going to say yellow.
Get rid of that handband.
The funniest part about synesthesia is it's color and heat and texture and smell. And so red is the most abrasive because it lets off this weird vibration when you have synesthesia, in my experience, and it's just
that's actually just a common, a
pink
psychological
pink.
Oh, pink, yeah, totally.
Pink is awful.
Psychologically, mentally, red is stimulating.
Yes.
Color, it
makes you salivate.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So that makes sense, you know. Yeah. To me.
So I started off having synesthesia, and they kind of told me when we just want you to know that the healing process is going to be really interesting because it's going to hurt really bad, and then it's going to stop hurting, and then it's going to hurt really bad again because the way they cut into my actual skull, and so is that the name of your other sex tape?
Yes. Yes, more like the name of my first experience of ever having sex.
Same.
It's gonna hurt, and then it's gonna feel really good,
and then
it's gonna hurt again.
And then I'm gonna come.
Yeah. Oh no, that's not part of my sex experience. Are you kidding?
Okay, no, not you, the other person.
Oh yes.
Okay, it's official. Not kid friendly. Okay, so any kids, please stop watching like a minute ago.
Absolutely no.
If you're a kid
and you're
listening to this, come means to go to a place.
It means
the opposite of leaving.
To get to a place.
Depending on.
Oh, that's.
Usually they're like
usually
hand
the same
in
thing.
hand. Like
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
After.
Hand in hand or hand on top of genitals. Well, anyways.
If you are a
Genitals
child and you're
are
still
a type of cake.
and you're still listening to this podcast, we
off.
need to call CPS because that is bad parenting all the way around.
Turn it off.
Yeah, don't listen to this, children.
Turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, synesthesia was the first thing. I literally had to walk into a Walmart in Ukiah, which is scary even when you're not a brain surgery survivor.
Walmart is scary. Walmart in Ukiah. I mean, no, that's terrifies me.
If you're a native, you get it. But so synesthesia was the first thing, and so the reason why it's painful and then not and then painful again is because I don't know if you guys have ever seen Hannibal. Remember when so there's a scene where Hannibal's like eating from this guy's skull. Sorry.
Lovely.
Trigger warning.
Okay,
yeah.
So like your actual
I do remember. I haven't seen that. Yes, of course.
We all know. We've all seen it on an airplane or
a meme or something.
Or a meme.
Yeah.
So your actual brain does not have pain receptors in it.
Oh, really?
Right. Yeah. So if you were to numb my skull and touch my brain with your finger, I wouldn't feel it.
Where are the pain receptors then? Your heart?
They're in the membrane surrounding your brain. I am not a doctor.
This is not a medical podcast.
This is not a medical podcast.
Yeah.
We have probably said many medically inaccurate things, and that's not the fucking point.
Listen, this is my experience, so that makes it valid.
Call us Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
But... So anyways, your brain itself does not have any pain receptors in it. And so when you heal from brain surgery, you're healing in layers. So you're healing from the top down. So there's dermal pain, which is the skin.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that's the initial pain is like, shit, the skin was cut into, ouch, it's healing. And so then it stops being painful because then the layer below it is healing, which has less sensitivity.
Okay.
Then the bone is fusing together. And while the bone is fusing together, the nerve endings that were deadened by being sliced are now becoming reactivated.
Oh, God.
And so you go through this phase of pain, not pain, pain, not pain, pain, not pain, which is the worst because the people who are getting over the fact that you were sick, like not your homeboys, not the ones that actually give a shit about you, are like, okay, now you're supposed to go back to work as normal, right?
Yeah. Well, I am feeling better, but it's going to get a lot worse.
And it's funny because a year later, like, and people who have experienced having limbs amputated, like the phantom limb theory, understand this. Literally, like 2 weeks ago, I was waking up with crippling migraines and extreme head pain. I texted my partner and I was like, my head feels like it did 3 weeks after my surgery.
Oh, God.
And so even once you're healed, your pain receptors in that area they retain.
Yes.
And so, and I already, like, there's another kind of issue that I suffer with that I don't really want to get into. But when I wake up in the morning, I'm like numb and in pain in certain parts of my body. And so like that on top of being numb and in pain in your surface site is like really, really difficult. And so you're kind of expected to be a part of society in a functioning way the more time has passed, and I'm sure you have experienced that key.
Basically I started my new job when I was told, like, hey, well, I mean, since you only got state and not federal disability, you better go back to work. And like at first I was feeling like I could do it more, but like I have to probably about once a week ish have a day where I'm just sitting down the entire day at my shift because I can't, and it's weird having these things where it's like, today I was asked to lift a thing of water, and I had no idea whether or not I could.
You
could lift the water cooler.
Yes.
Yeah, and the thing is, I could today, but like the last time I tried, I couldn't. But the time before it, I couldn't. It wasn't even like a problem.
And that inconsistency is like a target on your back because people are just like, why is he so like bad at
he
his
did it
hijab?
yesterday. He should be fine.
Oh my
They
God.
hold you to your highest standard because they know that your potential is one that can do this, but that's
when in reality it's a scatter plot.
Yeah, it's
chronic illness. If it is anything, is not dependable, not consistent. I mean, like it changes every single day. I mean, I am 5 years. Like I said, I just had my 5-year anniversary, and I recently took a position at teaching at the beauty college, which I'm super excited about.
Congratulations.
4 hours a day for 2 days a week, and I am terrified. I'm doing it because I love it, and I've been volunteering there for a few weeks, and I am so passionate about it, but 8 hours a week, and I am still terrified because for 5 years I have not been able to work even remotely close to that much.
Yes.
And that's what people, so many people don't understand how long it lasts.
It's
and
true.
How permanently affects your life.
I was in 2015, I had my surgery last year, so in 2018. In 2015, I got my teaching credentials. And so I've been either teaching or privately teaching or being a material maker, which is like, if you're a Walden school person or a Montessori school person. Creating curriculum and material, And so when this happened, I was still a nanny, and I felt this extreme guilt because I knowingly, I could not knowingly continue to teach. And actually since then, I worked as a kindergarten teacher in Cutton, a preschool teacher in Cutton. And I had to quit because my doctor I had 2 jobs. And she was like, once you've had brain surgery, you have to check in and get an MRI every 6 months for like the next few years. And she was like, I didn't know you had 2 jobs. You have to pick one and stick with it. So I had to pick the higher job. And I told him, like, look, like I'm having so many seizures. This is the one that I need to cut because children's lives are kind of hanging in the balance of whether or not I am or am not having seizures. And so it's like, yes, that was the responsible thing to do, but that's like a heartbreaking thing that I cannot be a teacher because of this, right? So it's changing the trajectory of my future.
I had an experience today that I don't mean, I don't mean to be like, I totally get it. Here's my life.
But this is your version of that experience.
Like a few hours before I came here, I have 2 nephews. They're literally the light of my life. One of them is 4 months old, and I babysit all the time, and it's never an issue. And for my sister's very aware of my health issues and also my limits, so it's never for like I don't like babysit for 24 hours, But she had to run an errand, so I kept the youngest one with me, and I think he may be starting to teeth. But he woke up from a nap just screaming, screaming for no reason, wasn't hungry, had just taken a nap, so wasn't tired, like
transition stuff.
And so like screaming, he doesn't whine. He's not a baby that does that. So there's always, if he is crying, there is a reason.
Right.
Anyways, so he's screaming for probably 10, 15 minutes solid. And there was nothing I could do to soothe him. And I got to a point where I got, I laid him down. I'm like, there's nothing I can do. So I'm going to text my sister, so I laid him down. But I got incredibly frustrated, which kind of turned into this, the beginning of what felt like anger, not violence, but
but
because one of the
you
symptoms
were getting so overwhelmed.
I was getting overwhelmed,
and
I was telling you earlier, one of the symptoms of PTSD is that your brain cannot comprehend the difference between emotions, and so I was thinking that it all feels the same. A baby crying, someone cutting me off on the street or threatening my life, it all feels the same to me. And it was literally 5-10 minutes into it, I text my sister, and my mom showed up because she was babysitting that night. So everything was fine. I started bawling. It was terrifying.
Overstimulating.
It killed me. Well, it was probably that, probably the overstimulation,
but also.
But my heart was broken because that feeling of like, this is a reaction I have no control over, and it's not my fault. I didn't do anything to create this. I immediately, you start feeling like unsafe. You start like what would happen if my mom didn't show up at that time and they kept crying? Like, and it's not like, oh, I'm just going to go, take a breath and then be fine. You are not in control of your brain anymore.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like that damage has been done and it is so extensive.
And that's
I cannot control, like, I can control myself. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'm not violent. I'm not a threat. But you don't.
Yeah, you can control your
feel
actions,
like you are.
But that's all you can control.
And it is terrifying, and it is heart-wrenching, and there's nothing you can do about it.
And that is so hard to explain to people
that haven't experienced it. Yep.
So I want to I really appreciate you being here today. It was amazing. When I pitched this, you were on that list of you're someone who I want to end up getting on here.
I remember that. I rember you telling me that specifically.
I brought up here. So one thing though that I like to ask, and I like what. So usually when you go and you talk about this to people that don't understand, you end up getting some really stupid questions.
Is this kind of our way of wrapping up? Also,
yes.
It's been an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm doing that too. But so we get asked these really stupid questions, and I want to know what is that one really fucking dumb question, if you can think of it, or if not,
it's
a really
not
dumb thing
so
that
much a dumb
say
question
to you a lot?
as a dumb comment.
Okay,
yes,
tell us.
Yes.
So I was at work. So this has been a really long process, obviously.
Of course.
And so even after my surgery was done, I would have seizures still, and so they didn't really know whether or not I had epilepsy or not, but they knew something was still going wrong even after a very successful surgery. I didn't have the tumor anymore.
Yeah.
I was not having brain bleeds, so things technically were fine. So I remember I asked for time off from, I have 2 supervisors, so I asked for time off from one of them, and she's like, why? And I was like, well, I have an MRI in San Francisco, and then I have I have a consultation at the Epilepsy Specialist Center in San Fran, which, another PSA, if you have epilepsy, go to UCF Parnassus. They have a specialty center where they do comprehensive testing. It takes 3 hours.
If you need a bone marrow transplant, they're also pretty good at that.
Basically, if you cough or sneeze twice in a row, leave this county and go somewhere else. Leave this county and go to San Francisco
or to Berkeley. Those are the places to go, or at Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And so I remember her saying, well, that's silly. And I was
oh my God.
Yeah, and it gets better. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, you don't have epilepsy, so why would you need to go to an epilepsy testing center? She's like,
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were a professional.
My mother-in-law has epilepsy, and she foams at the mouth, and she blah, blah, blah. So definitely you don't. And I was like, well, we're just trying to see if I do. And she's like, well, you don't. And she literally was telling me that I don't have it.
I mean, I think.
And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm the one that, while driving, has, had focal seizures. And it goes back to what we said before. If you don't have consistent physical manifestations of your illness,
you're not sick.
You're not sick.
Period. According to
everybody else. And so you're right. That's the dumb thing, was people subjecting me to the confines of physical symptoms.
Yep. I've literally experienced the same thing of telling people my symptoms from symptoms and issues, challenges from HIV, and medical professionals and other people who are HIV positive literally said, well, it shouldn't be that way.
And you're like,
but it is. Yeah.
Cool.
You've probably experienced that too.
Can you make it not that?
You know what shouldn't be a thing too is racism and women's rights, but it is. So let's talk about all the things that shouldn't be.
Since it's already in existence.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was the roughest.
Well,
And then when I finally got diagnosed, she literally was so astounded. She's like, wait, you don't though? I was like, I do have epilepsy. And she's like, oh, crazy. I'm like,
weird. I've never been wrong before.
It's not really crazy. I've had a seizure in this store at this job in front of your face.
Lady,
God. Oh my God. Lady, please. But yeah, that's the craziest, dumbest.
People,
or people being like, so do you foam at the mouth? And I'm like, I don't have rabies, so no.
You still...
people, general across the board, if someone says they have an issue, you don't have the right to say they don't. Period. Doesn't matter what it is.
Exactly.
Except
reverse racism.
Except reverse racism, or saying that you're white and your people are being racist against you. That's not real. Which I guess is racism.
Hot take, but true take.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hot but true. That's my stage name. Hot but true.
Mine's Key Man Harder.
Harder Key Man.
And what's yours?
My Fuchsia Ray. I actually have a stage name.
Ooh, check out Fuchsia Ray.
Yeah, drag. Yeah, I haven't done it in a long time.
Actually, synesthesia, best smelling and tasting color, fuchsia.
Synesthesia?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been told that before, actually.
So
best tasting color. She's been told that before.
Also, synesthesia, pretty good stage name.
Ooh.
TM. TM. Yeah. Synesthesia TM. Yeah. That's me. It's my cabaret name.
Let me say thank you.
Life is a cabaret, my old chums.
Let me say thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
No, thank you.
This has been amazing and informative and funny and fun, and you're just fantastic. And even if we do 750 episodes, I think every single time someone coming on and sharing their story is going to be just as special and and appreciated just as much.
Obviously not just as much as you. But
thank you.
But we'll be telling everybody that, so don't take it too personal.
Don't listen to the last 5 minutes of any of the other podcasts.
Any of the
Just
podcasts,
keep your ego in place.
Yeah.
All right. To protect my ego, I'll turn it off
5 minutes before. Always the closing.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And the one last thing that I always want to end up getting from people is, so for someone else who maybe doesn't end up having any type of brain issues and stuff, but someone who wants to go and just help out and be supportive to those who are disabled, for all of the listeners out there, what can they do to go and bring some good into this world?
Or even a resource that maybe they're experiencing symptoms and don't know where to look or ask. Either one of those.
So if you have a cavernous hemangioma or you have brain tumors or any really insanely kind of rare, complicated brain disorders, honestly, SFU Parnassus is the best. You know how when you're waiting...
UCSF?
UCSF Parnassus, thank you.
I was wondering if there was another, because I went to California Pacific Medical Center in San Francisco and UCSF, and I was like, is there a third hospital?
Yeah.
No, it's so UCSF Parnassus is where they do teaching stuff as well. So the reason why I say that is because literally you know how when you're in the waiting room of your specialist area, you know for a fact everyone else there is also getting similar treatment. Mm-hmm. So my mom was talking to parents and other parents because she was in the family waiting room while my surgery was happening. So she talked to families from Arkansas, families from China, families from all over the world who were literally there for brain-based surgery issues. So if you have something that's crazy, go to UCSF Parnassus.
That is they're the most experienced.
They have the most experience. Yeah. They are the best. And also not only that, but you may think that there's not a lot you can do. Honestly, just being a listening ear and allowing the person who you're with to kind of guide you through that process and let you know what your role is really important. And if it's you, be very clear about your feelings. For
your
me,
needs and boundaries,
For me, I was not scared, and so I was just trying to have fun. And my mom was stop being such a comedian, and I was like, well, this is the way that I'm going to get through it, right? And so then my third thing, same. That's why we're here. But my third thing is blood transfusion is one of the biggest things for us in brain surgery. Luckily, I didn't need mine, but there were packets of blood handy for me.
Because that's common. And
I'm B negative for anyone who's asking.
So give blood, across the board, give blood. Yeah.
And I was talking to Key about this beforehand. Most people give blood right after a tragedy happens, but blood, PSA, blood has an expiration date, even while iced. And so that blood is all going to go bad at the same time and be thrown away.
Give it before the tragedy.
Yeah.
That's when
they're going to need it then.
Exactly. So it's really important to give at the most mundane times ever. Like, just give blood, even if your blood type is not needed, your platelets, your white blood count is needed.
Absolutely.
And so do your research, look online at local blood banks, see what they're looking for, call them and ask, donate
and then
blood.
go in and do it.
And do it. Just do it, people.
One of the cutest and funnest first dates that I went on the first date, we went out to a nice little restaurant, and then we walked by a bloodmobile, and we both donated blood.
Shut up. That's probably one of the most adorable things I've ever heard.
We got opposite matching little bands, and they had they kind of made the thing look like there was like a bow tie on it. So we had matching opposite ones. It was great for
his
the
and hers.
Yeah,
blood transfusion. Also, Key's the whitest person I know, so this is tapping into the vampire aesthetic in a big way.
Absolutely. Nothing says romance like giving or taking someone else's blood, for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks again for coming. Thanks again for coming on this podcast.
Yes, thank you.
This is amazing.
Yeah, if you guys want to go and support us directly out there, you can go email editor@savagehenrymagazine.com or illest@savagehenrymagazine.com. I just got an email. I haven't set it up yet, but I will.
It's going to be by the time you hear this.
The email exists. I just haven't done.
Also, subscribe to the other podcasts that are on Savage Henry, and please come support this business. It's really amazing. I'm very thankful for letting us do this.
Savage Henry Comedy Club, 415 5th Street here in Eureka. There is live shows literally 7 days a week. There every Wednesday and Sunday. There's an open mic,
which I'm going to be participating in soon. So get ready.
There's shows on Fridays and Saturdays, so please just come out. And if you're not local and you don't have the money to spend, just go send this podcast to one of your friends. Just go
post it on social media. Get the word out. It's informative and hilarious.
I feel so happy to be a part of this. This feels something that's really important to me. So everything that you guys can do, even the smallest thing, just sharing it with one friend.
Absolutely.
Share, and subscribe.
Give us a like. Give us
a like down below in the links down below.
Which you don't know where that is because this is a podcast. So thanks again for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been the Illest podcast. Have a good night and stay relatively healthy.
Yeah, but not too healthy because then you won't have a reason to listen to this. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, actually, no. This is marketed to people with disabilities. So just I don't know, fucking don't let the bastards get you down. I'm just quoting Cash.
No, honestly, stay sick.
Yeah.
It's sick, bitch.
You get more sympathy that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Take a sick day.
Yeah, or 2 or 7. And then call us because we'll have you on the show. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.